welcome to the farm. It is a cold, snowy day. Finally, we've been waiting on snow, and I'm working with some milk in the kitchen today. I thought I would show you the super stupid simple way that we make butter here on the farm. Now, we do have a small dairy herd, so we have access to farm fresh milk, which is wonderful. But you can make this with cream from the grocery store. If you buy milk from your local farmer, that's awesome. You can maybe even buy cream from your local farmer. So I have milk here, and it's a couple of days old, and it's still very fresh, but by letting it rest, the cream has come to the top. So hopefully you can see the cream line here. You'll notice that the skim milk at the bottom is darker, and the cream at the top is creamier looking. So we're going to skim that off of the top, and we're going to put it right in our food processor. Now, I do have a butter churn that I use when I'm making really big batches of butter, but a food processor is my favorite way to make butter just in the home kitchen. It's so simple. So I'm going to start by skimming off the cream, and I just use a ladle and very carefully take my lid off here. I'm going to ladle off the cream at the top. And as I get closer to the skim milk at the bottom, you'll start to see a color change. So you just take your time and ladle the cream off the top, and it kind of wants to go into the ladle. And I've wanted to make this video for a long time, ever since my friend Dan texted me that his son Petey, who is 3, wanted to know if we make butter here on the farm the way that they did in the old times. I'm pretty sure that's how he said it, which is super cute. Now, Petey is apparently a mini foodie and butter enthusiast, which I think is really, really wonderful. I have a few of those myself. And butter is pretty magical. Obviously, it makes everything tasty. It makes foods not stick to your cookware. It affects cooking, especially in baking. So many things. And when people are looking to switch out ingredients, maybe for more locally sourced things or healthier options, a lot of times we think about getting some produce from the farmer's market, or maybe some fresh eggs from our neighbor, and all of that is wonderful, but what's often overlooked is the cooking fats that we use in the kitchen. So I love olive oil just as much as the next person, but I live in Ohio, and so olives don't really grow here. What I do have access to is butter, and then animal fats like lard and tallow. So we make a lot of butter. And thankfully I have access to a lot of cream. And then the skim milk, I'm gonna set aside to make either ricotta or some mozzarella, or maybe even some yogurt. Maybe I'll feed it to the pigs. There's a lot of things I can do with this, and none of it goes to waste. Nothing goes to waste on the farm. I'm gonna put my lid on and just turn it on. And this is gonna have to kind of agitate for a long time. And then we'll start to notice it kind of get to a whipped cream stage. And then we wanna go further than that, and those fat molecules are gonna stick together. That's gonna be our butter, and then our buttermilk is gonna start splashing out. So here we go. Okay, we're back just a few minutes later, and we have butter and buttermilk. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. And I just wanted to note too that if you leave your cream out for a little bit and let it warm up, it's going to churn a lot quicker for you. So you can see the difference between the yellow butter and then the very thin buttermilk that has separated. Now, fresh buttermilk like this is a lot thinner in consistency, and it has not acidified yet. So the buttermilk you get at the grocery store is very tangy and acidic. This has not acidified yet. I'm gonna put some in a jar and actually leave it out and let it acidify, and then that's gonna help me make mozzarella cheese later. But for right now, my goal is butter, and so I want to get as much of the buttermilk out as possible. One of the reasons that I like doing this in a food processor is that I can kind of tilt it. Just be careful putting your hand in here. Obviously, I have clean hands, and there is a blade, but I'm just gonna carefully kind of push the butter to one side, and it wants to stick to itself. And then I can just very carefully pour a lot of the buttermilk off. And if a little bit of butter gets in the jar, that is not a big deal. So I'm gonna get most of the buttermilk out of the way, take my blade out, and set that to the side. And then what I can do is continue to push the butter and just kind of knead it. And you'll notice that the buttermilk kind of expels that way. And I like doing this instead of kneading it with both of my hands, because obviously your hands are warm, and you want the butter to be cold, otherwise it'll just start to kind of melt. So I'm gonna keep doing this, and we just want as much of this buttermilk out as possible. The more buttermilk you have in there, the quicker this is going to culture and start to taste like cheese. That's kind of what cheese is, cultured milk. So I'm just gonna grab a bowl here. And now I can kind of push a little bit more of the buttermilk out. And I'm just gonna knead this for a while, and then I'm gonna set it to the side. Now, if I'm making butter and I'm using it right away, this is pretty much as far as I go. If I wanted to store for a while though, especially if I'm going to like make butter for the freezer, then I will definitely salt it and go the extra mile to get as much of this buttermilk out as possible. But this is fine to use right away. So this is just a wooden bowl that I found, and it has this paddle on it that I can kind of smoosh the butter. That feels like an appropriate term. So what I like to do to get as much of the buttermilk out as possible is knead it with my paddle here. And then what I'm also gonna do is add some salt. And salt is for flavor. It's also gonna help expel some more of that buttermilk, and it's going to help the butter to keep for longer. So I'm gonna keep mixing this in, and as the buttermilk expels and kind of comes out, I am going to just pour it off. I will store this usually just in a bowl in my refrigerator. You can also wrap it up and put it in your freezer. You can put it in a crock if you're feeling cute. I do have these. This is a silicone mold that is the shape of and size of a butter stick. 1 stick of butter is a half a cup. And then this one actually has little lines that mark tablespoons. So 8 tablespoons in a half a cup or a stick of butter. And then what I'll do for this, especially if I'm putting it in the freezer for baking, is just take a spoon, and again with the smooshing, I'll put the butter in here, and it's very soft right now, but obviously as I put it in the refrigerator, it's going to firm up, and then it'll be really easy to wrap. I hope that was helpful to you guys, and I hope you'll try making butter at home. It's obviously not complicated. It is so simple. And be sure to subscribe and tune in next time, because we're going to take some of this butter and we're going to make my foolproof recipe for biscuits. So I hope to see you guys next time.